Hi, my name is Dr. Michelle Ronksley-Pavia. I'm the lead researcher on the strength-based approaches for supporting twice exceptional learners, a systematic quantitative literature review, along with Dr. Janis Hanley. In our session today, we're going to talk about the background to twice exceptionality in Australia, strength-based approaches, the methodology and processes that we took for the systematic quantitative literature review, or the SQLR, an overview of the results, a brief discussion of the results, and the conclusion. In Australia, there are approximately 7% of school students who are twice exceptional. Now, this number is quite a conservative estimate and comes from some research that I undertook in 2020. Twice exceptional learners, as we know, possess characteristics of both disability and giftedness. So combinations of both of those exceptionalities. In many countries, including Australia, twice exceptional students remain under-researched and also underserved and under-supported in schools. This is a model of twice exceptionality that I originally developed in 2015 and revised in 2021. As you can see on the left-hand side of the model, we've got disability according to the medicalised model of disability, or how disabilities are generally diagnosed in most parts of the world, including Australia, very much based on that medical knowledge or medical understanding of what disability is, rather than a result of disabling environments that cause people with disabilities not be able to access learning, buildings on the same basis as people without disability. Then on the right-hand side of the model, you can see I've summarised giftedness according to Gagnier's model of giftedness, his differentiating model of giftedness and talent. That's the model of giftedness that's most widely accepted in Australia. So you can see that we have what we call aptitudes that generally occur in the top 10% of the population or of age peers in the case of students who are we talking about as being gifted. So the aptitudes occur in these different domains: intellectual, creative, social, perceptual, muscular, and motor control. And when we talk about twice exceptionality, we look at putting these two exceptionalities, so exceptionality of disability, one or more disabilities, often what we call comorbid or co-occurring disabilities, along with giftedness. So you can see there in the middle of this model, we've got twice exceptionality. And as we know, twice exceptional students are not as clearly defined as we see from the example of this model here, explaining and defining the apparent paradoxical combination of disability and giftedness. Now, we do know from some research that strength-based approaches are very useful for supporting twice exceptional students in schools and in classrooms. Based on positive psychology, research argues that strength-based approaches are the best ways of supporting twice exceptional learners and their unique needs in the classroom. So instead of focusing on what they can't do, their disability, we're looking at moving from that deficit approach to supporting twice exceptional learners to looking at what they can do based on their giftedness, based on their strengths. So we're coming from that perspective of supporting strengths to alleviate or support their disabilities so students are able to engage in the classroom and access learning on the same basis as other students without their disability and giftedness support needs. We know from research that strength-based approaches are very useful in promoting academic, social, and emotional progress for twice exceptional learners in schools. And I've got a quote here from Lee Richard's research that talks about twice exceptional students' experiences and observations of parents and teachers suggest that twice exceptional students need ownership in their learning, higher level thinking skills, compensation strategies, and strength-based, talent-focused learning environments. So we're really moving away from that deficit approaches that have informed a lot of the work that we've been doing with students with disability and also students who are twice exceptional, to really focus in on developing their talents. So moving from gifts into talents is the model that we use in Australia from Francois Garnier. Now, what do we mean by strength-based approaches? So I've provided some examples here on this slide. It provides entry points for twice exceptional students to reach academic, social, emotional, and behavioural goals through those strength-based, gifted or talent-focused approaches. So using the knowledge of students' strengths, the knowledge of their cognitive profiles, learning preferences, interests, and gifts to engage them in the school curriculum and engage them in learning. Strengths and interests can be leveraged for skill development, including academic skills, self-regulation skills, executive function, and emotional regulation skills. And we know from research that for twice exceptional students, executive function skills can be particularly impacted by their disabilities. The gifted or talent focus is about ongoing identification and recognition of students' development of gifts into talents, their interests, curiosities, and passions. And we're aiming to provide opportunities for enrichment, extension, and personalised learning through differentiation that builds on and expands areas of their giftedness and their interests. So embedded in this approach is the talent development process that I mentioned just before. So thinking about Garnier's differentiating model of gifted and talent, the DMGT, which influences a lot of what's done to support gifted and twice exceptional students in Australia, is really important. It means providing opportunities both within and outside school to develop students' potential and their interests. So talent development must be regarded as a non-negotiable component of any approach to supporting twice exceptional learners in the classroom. And evidence does suggest that twice exceptional students are best served with personalised learning. So we're looking at on this slide providing entry points for twice exceptional students to be able to reach those academic, social, emotional, behavioural goals through that strength-based, gifted talent focus. Looking at embracing their strengths and interests within the classroom to be able to bring up and support their disabilities. We're looking at gifted focus or talent development focus. So we're looking at ongoing identification. It doesn't just occur at one point in time, it occurs across different parts of the year and different year levels throughout the student's educational journey. We're looking at developing talent across time. So this informed our need for a systematic quantitative literature review to be able to look at what's already been done in terms of research in this field around strength-based approaches for supporting twice exceptional learners, but also looking at ways that this disadvantaged population of high potential learners have been taught in the past or through previous research, how that's looked at, how these students have been taught. So we developed 2 questions for the systematic review. The first one is looking at how and in what ways strength-based approaches are being translated into practice for supporting twice exceptional learners. So what does research say about what's being already done through strength-based approaches for supporting these learners? And the second question, what impact do these practices have on twice exceptional students' engagement in the classroom and in their learning and achievement, if anything? So this is an overview of the Prisma diagram for our SQLR that shows the methodology and the processes. So you can see here that we've selected articles based on being twice exceptional, but also having a strength-based focus in terms of addressing achievement or underachievement and addressing student engagement. So at the top there, you'll see identification of the studies via the databases. The date range we looked at was the 1st of January 2016 to the 28th of February 2022. And then we've got the criteria there that we began with. Then you'll see from the identification across the different databases, we identified 220 articles. Some articles were removed before screening because there were duplicates, or there were other reasons their title or their abstract weren't clear about what had been done in terms of those two areas, twice exceptional and or strength-based. We screened 174 articles, and found that there were about 82 that went through the screening process and ended up with looking at 62 papers for review that met the inclusion criteria as being both strength-based and twice exceptional focused. So the results of the systematic quantitative literature review, we split up into different areas or different sample structures. The first one was looking at country. So of the 62 articles that we identified that looked at both twice exceptional and strength-based together, we found that there was quite a distribution across countries, but of course with the United States of America dominating. So 6% of the articles came from 12 journals, and 40% of the articles were single articles drawn from these journals as well. The main journal sources for articles was Gifted Education International, the Journal for the Education of the Gifted, and Education Sciences. So as you can see there on the left-hand side, the United States dominated research in this area. And then there's a large jump to second place. So of that 38 articles or research projects that have been undertaken in the USA, the next was 7 articles from Australia. Turkey came third with 3 articles, and then Taiwan, and then single articles from the rest of the countries: Canada, China, Chile, England, Hungary, Jordan, Malaysia, Poland, and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. On the right-hand side there, you'll see in that diagram, we show the methodologies that were generally used across these 62 studies. So there was a comparatively even spread of articles in terms of methodology, with the largest group being qualitative studies. So that was 18 articles, or 30%. Articles that provide an analysis, theory, or discussion made up 19%, and a large chunk, 11 or 18% of the articles, were literature reviews. There were 11% or 7 articles that were quantitative or mixed methods. The next area that we looked at from the 62 articles was schooling context. So what year levels were actually discussed, or in some cases in that green section, representing 50%, were unspecified. So 50% of the school context didn't specify, the articles didn't specify what school context was. The largest group was primary or elementary schooling at 24%. You can see there in the orange segment. This is almost half the number of studies where the context was given. And then you can see it goes down from high school, secondary, 7%, K to year 12, 10%, tertiary, 6%, and then early years was only 3%. Now, across the study, there were lots of different focus areas, and you can see here we've summed those up in terms of the key focus areas of the 62 research articles. So you can see that the list had grew quite organically. We were going and expanded across different areas. So 6 main groupings emerged with the foci relating to student, teacher and programming, learning context and external supports, interactions and content skills. And then the groupings related to student and teacher programming. So there's a broad range of topics which shows how interrelated the research was across twice exceptionality and strength-based in conjunction with each other. Interestingly, there you can see that assessment was quite high, as was underachievement in the discussion, school experiences, and then looking down to perceptions, preparedness to teach, and of course, strength-based talent development. Another area we looked at was looking at the combination of strength-based achievement and engagement, or underachievement and student engagement as well. So when we compared the coverage of articles in terms of these 3 areas, it was clear that consideration of learner engagement was lacking. So even though they talked about strength-based approaches for supporting twice exceptional learners, the research articles didn't necessarily look at the important factor of engagement in strength-based learning. So interesting to see that engagement featured very little at all. So the systematic quantitative review, the SQLR, offers a range of topics and ways to consider the strength-based approaches and how they were translated into practice in terms of supporting twice exceptional learners. And we are still analysing the data that came out of the study to really hone in on some of the key findings in terms of what strength-based approaches look like, how they were conceptualized in the classroom. But what we did recognize is that factor of student engagement, so thinking about 4 engagement dimensions in terms of whether students are actually cognitively engaged at the high level of engagement, is a really important consideration that's lacking in the research. So the literature review actually reveals a multiplicity of dimensions, so additional barriers, complexities of considerations, and gaps beyond the classroom. So we can really see the clear focus for further research is on student engagement. So thinking about the 4 engagement dimensions that I've got here on the screen: behavioural, being present in the classroom, participating, effective engagement, that attitude and interest towards learning and what they're doing; social, having that sense of belonging and involvement in school; and cognitive engagement, so that high level of engagement that we're aiming for talent development, such as self-regulation and goal setting. It would also be really interesting to have more studies undertaken outside the US to see different contexts, different cultural contexts, and how something like strength-based approaches could be implemented or are being implemented for supporting twice exceptional learners. So thank you for listening to our presentation. There's contact details there for me if you'd like to get in touch with any questions. And I've also got some references at the end of the PowerPoint. Thank you. Bye for now.